And thanks to Duke and Anna and David and Gary, everybody who's been so welcoming. This has been the most sort of unplugged I've felt in a really long time. So I appreciate that. And many of you have been forced to listen to me talk over the last few days one-on-one, and I appreciate that because all of that is going into this, because I had no real idea until I talked to you what I was going to talk about. So, so I don't believe that things happen for a reason. A lot of people say things happen for a reason. I've never liked that saying. Instead, I believe that things just happen. They happen, and ultimately what ends up coming from that is based entirely on what we do with what happens. You know, it's not predetermined, it's not mystical. It is about what action we take when things happen. So I grew up in this like very bohemian, my mother was, she calls herself a lifetime hippie, and she still is. And so I grew up in this way that she never answered a question, though. Like just gave an answer, a straight answer. I'd ask her a question, and she's got to give me choices, right? So, I'm asking my mom, one day there's prayer in school still back in the 60s in North Carolina, and my teacher's not happy because I don't participate. And my mom, I stand up, I do it, but my mom says, look, you don't have to. You don't have to participate, because I would rather you didn't until you have a clue what you're praying about and who you're praying to. And so she sort of gave me permission, and from that point on, I thought it was great, except then she never would actually answer a question, like ever. So it was always, you have these choices. And she taught me about adversity because she had a hard life, as most people do who are actually trying to accomplish something. And so she basically taught me that adversity comes in two basic packages. I mean, there's a million ways that adversity can hit us or be put upon us, but basically there's self-inflicted, which I am an expert at, and then there's just the things that happen to us, right? I mean, we all know this, the things that come out of the blue. Maybe we have some responsibility in them. They seem like they have come from nowhere. And I basically took her advice and decided that I would be a doer, and that I would, the only way that I could, she used to call me a survivor, so that's how she labeled me. Maybe she knew something already that I didn't, and so I became like, I loved that label. So at 8 years old, I'm calling myself a survivor. I haven't survived anything yet. I've survived being 8 years old, and so, which is an accomplishment probably, but I began to work towards that. I realized that to survive something, I had to actually do something to survive. And you don't survive winning the lottery or, sleeping with a supermodel. Well, no, I wouldn't know, but usually you aren't surviving things that are pleasant, you're surviving things that are difficult. And so I set about creating, in high school I played 6 sports, and I student body president, and I did all of these things that I felt like were what I needed to be doing. I needed to be really busy and challenge myself, and it gave me this feeling that I was special, which was good. That's a good thing, right, to feel that way about yourself. However, I got to college. I went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and I get there, and I am absolutely stunned that there are not welcome Charlie banners everywhere, and you're awesome, we're so glad you're here. And and I find out after a couple of months that not only am I not awesome, I'm really not even average. There's 5,000 freshmen here, and I am squarely in the middle if I'm lucky. And so I began to seek something that I was above average in. And I gravitated towards, you gotta remember it's 1980, so 18 was still the drinking age in North Carolina. So yeah, so I'm 18 and I'm drinking a lot. And I figure out that I'm really good at it. So I am a standout in this way. I mean, I can drink with and through anybody and anything, and it's the 80s, and so cocaine is everywhere. It's ubiquitous at campus, and my classmates are all going to bed at 2 o'clock and getting up and going to class the next day, and I'm 3 days later, I'm still awake. and I got this great reputation, of course, for being that guy, and That lasted about a year and a half. I had a pretty good run, really. I was a decent enough student even at that to survive for a little while. But inevitably and eventually that all went away. And so I left college, and I did not leave addiction, though. And I basically became a real addict after that. And I spent from 19 till I was 29 years old, I basically moved around the country. And anybody in here who has a history with addiction or knows someone, you move, you start over, you do everything awesome for a while, you screw it up, slink out of town, and you start over again. And I probably did that 8 or 10 times. And throughout that, though, I managed to achieve some things. You know, I was always the top salesman in my company, whatever it was, and I even cleaned up long enough to run the Boston Marathon when I was 26, and I got married to a really foolish woman, and I was able to do these things. And I know now, of course, looking back, that I did all those things because I was trying so hard to prove that I couldn't possibly be an addict, because nobody could be an addict and do the things that I was doing, right? I mean, it's not possible. So the more of it I did, the better I was able to hang on. But that balance kept going up and up and up, and of course finally was unachievable. And then my wife got pregnant. I had a son. She had a son. We had a son. And I knew at that point that there was no way that I would ever drink or use another drug, right? Because I now got this beautiful boy. You know, I have this crazy business. I'm chasing hailstorms all over the world, another story, but I'm in Wichita, Kansas, of all places, and my 2-month-old son and my wife, they come to visit, and we have this amazing week, right? I mean, all this love, I'm an addict, and I don't even know where to put any of this stuff, and now I have this person to put it in, and he's amazing and beautiful, and it was the best week I ever had, and I take them to the airport with complete determination that, you know, things are going to be different. And an hour later, I'm in the back room of a crack house in Wichita, and I stay there for 6 days. And 6 days later, so the end of that story is the police are there. Inevitably, they're going through my car. There's 3 bullet holes in my car, and they were put there by somebody with intent to harm me. And that's usually how bullet holes get in cars. And I'm watching this policeman go through my car, and he reaches underneath the driver's seat and he pulls out this pipe. And any sane person at that moment would have said, "Oh my God, he found it." And instead I'm going, "Oh my God, that's where that was." You know, it's okay to laugh at that, I promise. It's I know it's sick, but it's like that was the moment, though, that I said, this is unbelievable. This is outrageous. I can't keep doing this. And my mom had told me I didn't have to pray all those years ago, and I still didn't know who to pray to, still don't to this day. But that moment I actually said a prayer, and I asked for the obsession of this to be taken away from me. Because I had tried sobriety a couple times, and it didn't work, and I didn't make it work. And basically, I had this moment, and it was like lifted. It was lifted. And today, just to flash forward, I just had my 20-year clean and sober anniversary, and so that is that has been a part of my life now all this time. But what I did when I got sober is I started to run, and I had run in high school, and I'd done that Boston Marathon, and I loved to run, and I started to run not just a little. I did, like, in the first few years, I did, like, I don't know, 30 marathons or something, because that's not addictive behavior at all, right? I had that whipped. But it was different. You know, the obsession to do drugs and alcohol was something to hide everything about me, to cover that up and bury it. And the obsession, if you will, to run was all about being more of who I was. I felt more real. I felt I was trying to kill my addict too. Like, at that point, I still thought if I could just beat this guy into the ground that he would never come back. And it took many years to figure out that, of course, that addict is still to this day, like, all the best parts of me. You know, that guy didn't need to be killed. He needed to just not do drugs and to actually build a life. And so I started to do that. And I moved from fixing hail-damaged cars to television, because isn't that an obvious change? And so, long story, but I won't tell you the details, but I end up working for ABC on Extreme Makeover Home Edition as a producer. And I end up being a senior producer on this show. And I find a way to enjoy helping other people. And sobriety had taught me already that to keep it, you have to give it away. It's a good saying in AA and in the world, you know, to keep it, you have to give it away, which is what everybody here has been saying since all week. But I was working on this show, and I was racing all over the world now, Brazil, the Gobi Desert, Atacama, all over the place, and suddenly I had this brilliant idea that I wanted to run all the way across the Sahara Desert. And I decided that I should bring 2 friends along, and so I wouldn't just die, or there'd be something to eat or something, I don't know. And basically I met a man named James Mall, who is a director, and he had won the Academy Award for Best Documentary a few years earlier. And I tell him this story about running the Sahara, and he's like, I'll do it. And I wanted him to give me like a student director or something. Calls me a week later and he says, hey, look, Matt Damon, I just talked to him, and he wants to executive produce and narrate this film. Is that okay? And I'm like, well, I was really hoping for somebody better, but you know, let's just go with that, all right? So anyway, I'm going to show you a trailer.
It is the most unforgiving place on Earth. Over 3.5 million square miles. A vast wilderness. It is the Sahara Desert, with people and cultures as unpredictable as the landscape.
Running 50 miles a day, it's the challenge, it's going the distance, it's just pushing myself to my limits.
It's never been done. No one's ever run that far in that period of time.
That will be tough. It's a mental thing, I think.
Imagine running 50 miles per day for more than 100 days. In an unprecedented personal challenge, 3 ultra runners, good friends, test physical strength and mental toughness, running across the entire Sahara Desert.
They're such high-end athletes. They're used to pushing themselves, but they're going to be pushing their bodies more than they ever have in the past.
We've had injury, we've had sickness.
Sorry, dude.
The best thing to do would be to stop for the day, but we have to cover some miles today.
Any Americans found there without proper paperwork are going to be considered spies, liable to execution.
You're going to have to make the best decision for us as a team.
It's so difficult for me because the personalities are so different.
I don't want to push us into the ground, obviously, but I'll push us damn close.
This is, you know, a lot tougher than you could have ever thought.
You can do this. You don't want to quit.
It's okay. We saw a young boy, 7 or 8 years old, in the desert alone, fending for himself while his dad was a 2 days walk away to get water. That's the water situation. I mean, it's so much bigger an issue than I would have ever thought.
Narrated by executive producer Matt Damon and directed by James Mall, a personal and compelling journey into the world's most mysterious wilderness.
The purpose of the 3 of us coming here was to learn more about each other, to learn about the people of the Sahara, and to do something that hasn't been done before.
They all 3 agreed that if one runner went down, they would be out of the expedition.
I thought your commitment was different than that.
When is the end?
The end is when we get to Cairo.
When Africa is one, and we sing this song, show me the way home. Oh, show me the way home. It don't hurt no more.
It will be a life-changing experience, and not just for the 3 runners, for everybody who's along on this journey. So that was an amazing experience, and I spent the next couple of years getting to live that, and the water part of it was incredible. We raised more than $5 million over a couple of years and built wells, and I got to go around and talk about it. I got to talk about water, I got to talk about running, I got to show the film all over the country and do these great things, and it was amazing. So I began to plan another expedition because one's not enough. So I wanted to run across the United States next. And it had been done quite a few times, but I wanted to set a record for the fastest crossing. And so to do that, I needed to run 70 miles a day for basically 46 days in a row. The Sahara, by the way, so we ran 2 marathons a day for 111 days consecutively without taking a day off. And I only had 2 showers in 111 days, so be glad you weren't there. But running America was going to be actually harder. Even though it was shorter, it was running that much extra distance every day was going to be tough. And so, but I managed to get investors for this project. I had this new, really bad and painful idea, and on September the 13th, 2008, we set off from San Francisco to run to New York. And on September 16th, 2008 was the day that Lehman Brothers collapsed. So we're out running across the United States, making another film, and part of this is to talk to Americans about America and how they feel about America. But this is, we didn't know this was getting ready to happen. Killed our budget too, because we had 2 RVs and all this gas went from, $2 to $4 overnight, which is where it is now, right? But it was an amazing time to be out there and talk to Americans about how they felt. And all of a sudden, so I'm going to show you another trailer right now, but when you watch this, remember these answers these people are giving is in the weeks following the collapse of Lehman Brothers, not today, but listen to the the prophecy in this. Hey kiddo, it's very funny. They have no idea why we're here. Why are we here?
I've always believed that America offers opportunities to all who have the industry and will to seize it.
These are the moments right here. It's an interesting time with this election and all the changes that are coming.
I've been running away from things, sometimes toward things.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around running from San Francisco City Hall to New York City Hall and trying to do it in 46 days, 70 miles every single day.
70 miles, I don't even drive that far like in a week.
I walked 20 once. I don't care to do that again.
Our entire economy is in danger.
So the economy just can't support our lifestyles any longer.
It's all come tumbling down.
I would not be surprised we see an entire collapse.
I like to see what the human body can do, pushed to the extreme.
This is the worst I can remember feeling.
I think we all have demons, and Charlie has a whole bunch of them.
I'm trying to be upbeat, but I'm just scared. This is a bad situation. It's the worst possible scenario I could have imagined.
Everybody has those feelings about quitting.
If we continue down this road, it's going to cause a lot of permanent damage.
I haven't given up on this thing, but I have very little hope right now.
A lot of people are afraid.
I'm worried about just continuing on.
I think there's a lot more trouble coming.
We are at a defining moment in our history.
It's time to pay the piper. They're going down.
This is going to be painful.
Best advice is rest and time.
If I do, say, 40 miles instead of 60, would that constitute rest?
America is a place where all things are possible.
Man was made to run. He's made to run for a long time. That's just the way we're built.
Can you imagine the pioneers when they went across here?
You can do it. This is USA.
It's an attempt, at least, to remind people that just because something seems impossible doesn't mean you're not supposed to give it a shot. Or 2000. So the movie premiere for that film, it took about 1.5 years to actually edit that film and get it to where we had a premiere. So May 19th, 2010 in Greensboro, North Carolina, we had the world premiere for this film. And I packed theater in my hometown, 400 people, news media. This was my day. This was a great day for me and one of the best days I've ever had. I got up the next morning, groggy, tired, go about running some errands. I had to come back to my apartment. And as I got out of my car and walked towards the front door of my apartment building, I noticed movement off to my right-hand side. And I see 6 armed men with badges coming my way. And I looked behind me because surely they're after somebody else. And they weren't. And so I was arrested on the day after my premiere. And I was arrested for supposedly federal charges for overstating my income on a home loan application. And I thought for sure there would be like a punked scene coming up, but there wasn't. And I spent that night in jail, and the next morning I was in a federal holding cell for 6 hours waiting for arraignment on 15 federal charges, essentially all stemming from allegedly overstating my income on an application. And I remember sitting there and through all the years of addiction recovery and all the things that had happened to me, I remember sitting there and thinking to laughing. I began to laugh out loud, almost uncontrollably. And I said to myself out loud, I wonder where this path is going to lead. And because my life, it was over. You know, at that point, I knew instinctively that none of the things that had been true the day before were true on that day. They were all gone. I got purged from those charities that I started. Within days, I got purged from every business that I'd helped start. You still can't find my name on the internet on any of those places. That was not me anymore on that day. Moving forward, I was set for trial later that year. I had a 7-day trial. A jury found me guilty of these charges, and I was sentenced to 21 months in federal prison in Beckley, West Virginia. And on Valentine's Day 2011, my sons dropped me off at prison. So my two boys who were 17 and 15 dropped me off at prison. And I'm in Beckley, West Virginia, and we hugged and said goodbye. And they were brave and wonderful. And meanwhile, it's Valentine's Day, and I'm just really hoping that I'm not going to be somebody's Valentine that night. Oh, man, it was, yeah. And I wasn't, not that night. No, I wasn't. I never had sex while I was in prison, so there was that one time, but I really needed the money. So I did what I had learned how to do through addiction recovery and through running. And what I did was I set to work living and doing. And I started running, and I started doing yoga by myself, and I started to write and do these things. And slowly but surely people started coming to me, laughing at me doing yoga for a while. And then by the time I left prison, 18 months later, I had 30 people doing yoga with me. I had 50 guys running. I had more than 10 of them that had lost more than 100 pounds. And basically, and teaching people about addiction. And I essentially did what I had learned how to do, which is to keep it, I have to give it away. Even under the absolute most unbelievable circumstances that I ever could have imagined for myself. And you know, I'm standing here right now. My sentence ended August 21st. What's today? September 22nd? My sentence ended 31 days ago. So this is like my first even attempt at talking about this, and certainly I have no ability to tell you, unlike other things I've done in the past, I can sort of wrap it up and say this is what I learned. I don't have a clue. All I can tell you right now is that I am in the middle of doing right now. Like I am at this place where I don't know what to do exactly, and I have to trust though that if I keep doing it, that it will work out. And the fact of the matter is, as I said right from the very beginning, you know, things don't happen for a reason. I just don't believe that. Things happen. They just happen, and all that matters is what we do with what happens. So that's it. Thank you.